Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Blu-ray update. This is, of course, during the Memorial Day weekend. Definitely not a big bunch like the last time, but we do have a collection of six 2021 movies, two trilogies, which I have owned three separate movies, and the big one that is right in the center. I am really excited about this because I needed to get some of the current Blu-rays of recent released movies, and I am very excited to discuss to you guys what is going to be discussed here. So I'll be going through the two Disney animated films, the two trilogies, as well as the big movie right in the center. Not that one, but this one. And then, of course, the one recent 2021 Oscar-nominated movies, these two as well. And, of course, the big franchise right in the center. So we begin this off with the two animated Disney films out of the three that I had found, because the only way I can get the current Blu-ray releases at stores are my locals, Target and Walmart. Unfortunately, I said this in the last update video that my local Best Buy had closed down. So those are the only two stores that I can get like the current releases, unless I'm mistaking something. But as you can see, we have Pixar's Luca and the 60th animated film from Walt Disney Animation Studios, and our Best Animated Feature winner, Encanto. Now, the only one I unfortunately did not able to find a Blu-ray of, which is Raya and the Last Dragon. I found the DVD, but I wanted to look for the Blu-ray itself. But unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity. For those who don't know, I had used to do a series when I did reviewing the Oscar-nominated films that were nominated for Best Animated Feature, Best Documentary Feature, and Best International Feature. I canceled that due to somewhat of a lack of interest, because it wasn't really doing successful when it comes to video views. But I still kind of keep the tradition of doing an Oscar movie marathon after the ceremony ends and when all the films were available digitally or on streaming services. That's where, of course, came in the Disney films, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, of course, on Netflix, and then Flea on Hulu. Now, out of all the films that were nominated, I actually did enjoy that entire lineup. Although I've yet to see, like, Belle, Ron's Gone Wrong, or the ever fan favorite Sing 2, I don't know which one to replace it with yet experiencing those other three films. But these two Disney films were definitely great. I would say that Luca, for me, is the weakest out of the five nominations, like, my least favorite out of the five. I will say there are some interesting elements, some typical overprotective motherness, especially with Maya Rudolph being in another motherly role in an animated film of 2021, because she was also the mother in The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and she made that small appearance in Licorice Pizza. So that was kind of a weird year for Maya Rudolph. But this movie, of course, stars Jacob Tremblay, Jack Dylan Grazer, I believe Emma Berman, I believe that's the actress's name who plays that character, but I forget. Obviously, this was directed by Enrico Caruso, who made, I think that's, I said it right, who made the Oscar-nominated short La Luna on his directorial debut. And, of course, this film, unfortunately, had to go to Disney Plus instead of on the big screen because of the high cases of the pandemic. Obviously, at the moment, Turning Red did that as well, but Lightyear, that is coming out this upcoming month, is planning to be released on the big screen, because they know for a fact that would be $1 billion juggernaut. But as for my thoughts, where I think in the levels of this movie, I would say it's definitely not one of Pixar's best. In terms of the decade, it's not as good as Onward, but I would probably say, in my personal opinion, a little bit better than Soul. I will say that because of all the challenges, the animation, the acting especially, although there are some great acting in Soul. I just feel a little bit more connected to this film, more so than Soul. Not one of the levels of Pixar's best, but this also does have, like, the first legit straightforward Pixar villain. Although there was Gabby in Toy Story 4, but this was a legit straightforward villain from beginning to end. I believe, like, that wasn't a plot twist. I don't know when was the last time that occurred. Was that, like, what, Skinner from Ratatouille, unless I'm mistaken? I really don't know. But as for Encanto, this was actually, for me, in the middle. That's kind of saying to say the least, because my personal ranking in the animated list goes from numbers 5 to 1, Luca, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Encanto, Raya and the Last Dragon, and Flea. So I personally think the Danish documentary Flea should have won the category. I think the only problem with Encanto I have is some of the characters, I would say, maybe some mean-spirited going on, especially against Mirabel. Obviously, the thing was about the film in particular that really stood out to me was the writing. And although not the best animated film of the year, but definitely the best animated screenplay of the year. And of course, the songs. Now, the thing is about We Don't Talk About Bruno. That's what I was about to say. When I listened to it the first time before I saw this movie, I didn't get it. And then, of course, the Oscar performance, which was absolute garbage, thanks to some unknown, like Louis Foncia, I believe Becky G was one of them, and that unnecessary freestyle for Megan Thee Stallion, which was unnecessary. Kind of like the Super Bowl when they teased us about having Sweet Victory perform. They lied to us. That's what happened in the Oscars. They said the full cast of Encanto will perform. We Don't Talk About Bruno. They lied to us as well. I will also say some of the acting here is great from Stephanie Beatrice and Diana Gruo, who plays Isabella. Isabella! I just liked when Mirabel yelled her name when Bruno showed her what the actual result of some sort of, I forget what one of the spells Bruno does to see how she can fix the miracle. Would I replace this with Dorso? Speaking, We Don't Talk About Bruno. Would have replaced it with Dos Oruguitas? Definitely. Even though Dos Oruguitas is a great song as well. As I said, number 5 and number 3, respectively, in my rankings. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a Blu-ray for The Mitchells vs. the Machines or Raya and the Last Dragon. I don't know if Flea has a Blu-ray one. But it is still glad to at least own these two. Okay, this might be a mere coincidence if you saw in the last Blu-ray video that I had owned one movie from one trilogy and 2 movies from the other, and now I have both of the entire collection here. So yes, I have the Blu-ray trilogies of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings entirely, because as some of you might know, in the last one, I have gotten used Blu-rays of The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, and The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and The Return of the King. I couldn't find an individual one for, like, The Desolation of Smaug or The Battle of the Five Armies, or my personal favorite of the trilogy, The Two Towers. I really don't need any explanations. You can go back to the last video when I talked about a little bit of some Middle-earth Blu-rays. But, obviously, you would think the covers kind of suck, but that's kind of the typical way it is for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings Blu-rays. They were supposed to look like this. As you might tell, the Hobbit trilogy Blu-ray is much bigger than, there we go, is much bigger than, the last time, and I think something's going loose here, but, I'll figure that out here in just a second. Actually, I'll do that later. The thing is, this actually comes with 6 discs. This one still comes with 3, because the thing is, you got 3 different discs for the movie, and 3 different discs for the bonus features. Lord of the Rings trilogy is just the 3 movies. Nothing that's real special with this, not even inside of this, but it is kind of a bigger set, as you can tell. Jeez, it is humongous, but not as humongous as the one we're going to be talking about last. I don't really need any explanations. Well, I kind of like with the discussions with Moana, Toy Story, and the Polar Express, would I be getting rid of the original versions of the Blu-rays? Probably not, because you get them individually, but keep in mind, I'm still in the middle of the progress of something else, but, and obviously I'm making my series mini-series at the moment, so I don't have time for it, but it is finding glad to get all 6 of the Middle-earth films in my collection. Okay, so originally I was gonna do this separately and like these two separately, but I think it kind of makes sense to put both of them together. And as you can tell, yep, No Time to Die and Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm actually going to start up with Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I'm not going to reveal much of this, because as you guys know, if you watched the last video I did on the channel update, I announced that I would be ranking each of the Spider-Man movies. And as you can tell, since I got a physical copy of this, you might know that, of course, I am actually interested. You probably know that this is definitely in the top tier list. So, I finally got this, and I'm just going to make this stating clear. The Marvel I know this is going to be a huge controversial statement here, but I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is one of the most the most overrated film franchise ever, especially Avengers Endgame being one of the most overrated films of all time. But very ironic, I have not been a fan of some of the MCU films because of how mean-spirited the characters are and how lazy some of the writings is. I mean, seriously, Endgame is just Back to the Future fan service. That's what the writing and the script is. But here is a movie that does fan service done right. This is an MCU movie I did enjoy. I really did enjoy this film, and it actually worked on its fan service correctly. I mean, seeing Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Sandman, and Tobey Maguire from the Sam Raimi trilogy, and Lizard, or Electro, and Andrew Garfield from the Mark Webb movies, with John Watts MCU's who's Peter Parker, which is Tom Holland. It is just bizarre. Now, I really wish that this would have been an ultimate Blu-ray cover where you would have gotten all the characters, but it's just similar to the poster. Now, I know a lot of people had said that the Blu-ray features are kind of disappointing because it doesn't come with deleted scenes. I'll probably have more discussion about this when I go to my personal rankings of these movies, but I'm finally glad. One of the few, a Marvel Cinematic Universe film I actually did enjoy, and glad to own it on Blu-ray. But as for No Time to Die, now this was actually my bonus film in the technical categories when I do my Oscar movie marathon. For those who don't know, after the Oscar season, I usually do an Oscar movie marathon, where watching all the picture nominees, the rest in the Big 8 categories, I meant the rest in the 7 of the Big 8 categories: director, the acting, and the screenplays, all the animated, documentary, and international nominees, and at least 1 or 2 bonus films in the technical categories. I might have said this earlier. And this year's bonus film was No Time to Die. I was originally going to put Spider-Man No Way Home as well, but since it got that one nomination like Avengers Endgame, I just put it to the side. But let me just tell you, and now here's the thing. I am not a big Bond fan, because I didn't grow up watching any of the James Bond movies from Sean Connery or Pierce Brosnan or the other ones throughout the time. Obviously, because I was too young. So Craig's Bond would be around my time. Now, I did watch all the 4 films prior to this, for the first time prior to this, because Casino Royale was definitely a good one. I'm agreeing with the critics. I felt mixed with Quantum of Solace. Skyfall, I'm sorry to say this controversial statement, I think Skyfall was very overrated. Spectre, I think it's a bit underrated. But here, however, not also that this is the best of the five Craig Bond movies, but it's also my favorite Oscar movie of 2021, and it is a legit masterpiece. My first legit masterpiece of the 2010 decade. For my definition, when I describe a movie as a masterpiece, it basically would mean when I consider a movie to be a masterpiece, I applaud the movie at the end. This one did it for me. I was just blown away of putting the entire summary of the past 4 films into one big epic finale. Daniel Craig really gets his best portrayal in his final performance as Bond. Lea Seydoux is great. Lashana Lynch. The small performance from Ana de Armas is awesome. Rami Malek as a villain, definitely a better performance than Bohemian Rhapsody. I think we can all agree on that. Unless if you, maybe not the better performance, but for me, I think it's better than his performance as Freddie Mercury. And I mean, it was a bizarre experience to see this massive journey come to an end. And all the action was done right. And for me, I think this should have won Best Sound. It definitely had awesome sound effects. As for the visual effects, if we also go into Spider-Man, I can't really fully say because I did exclude some of the tech. As I said, I only do 1 or 2 bonus films in the technical categories. No Time to Die was the only one of the technical categories that I did watch. So I didn't see like Free Guy or Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings for my marathon. But I just was a blown experience that I was wondering when I was going to watch all the other movies. I was like, how is this going to top all them? How are the Best Picture nominees going to top over this? And I'm surprised none of them did. The closest one that I think would have been a masterpiece, if it would have been my favorite, if it didn't have some minor issues, was Spencer, the Princess Diana biopic starring Kristen Stewart, which I also was looking for to see if the Blu-ray was around, but unfortunately I did not find the Blu-ray either at Target or my Walmart. So that's kind of a shame as well. Another movie I wanted to find, but yeah, this movie just topped it over, and it is definitely my favorite movie of the decade, in terms of the Oscar movies of the 2 years, because I have not seen the 2022 movies. I know Top Gun Maverick's been out, but just been released. But this is definitely, I'm not a Bond guy, but I really had an awesome experience watching this movie. My masterpiece of the decade so far. Alright, before I begin with this, I forgot to mention about one other thing about No Time to Die here is that the thing about it, obviously it won for original song for the title song by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell, which, if you remember my predictions, I consider Billie to be a little bit overrated, but not overrated as I thought. I think she was, but a little bit less than I originally said it. Because I think the song definitely works better in the movie. But honestly, I think Down to Joy from Belfast should have been my pick, if you know my predictions correctly. And speaking of Belfast, here are actually 2 out of the 10 Best Picture nominees that I have gotten. Now, in terms of the Best Picture nominees, it is a bit difficult, because the thing is, only 4 movies I had found that are on Blu-ray. 4 of them were at Target, and I think only this one was at Walmart. But so as you can tell, here are the 2 Warner Brothers movies, King Richard and Dune. Because the other picture nominees that I saw at Target were Belfast, as very coincidental when mentioning Down to Joy, and West Side Story, which I kind of consider them both overrated. It's like, especially West Side Story being the exact same movie. It's basically the 1961 movie, but with a little bit of differences. Yeah, I just almost felt like I experienced the same movie. That's why it was my least favorite of the picture nominees, and I'm not getting that one. Maybe also not the original one, because I wasn't really a big hype fan of that movie either. Belfast, not really my thing as well. Another one that obviously there was no Blu-ray I could have found was Nightmare Alley, which I loved the first hour, but wasn't a fan for the rest of the I think the final 90 minutes. So the remaining 90 minutes of the movie, I would say, wasn't really a big thing. Obviously there are a couple of streaming movies that have yet to get a Blu-ray release from either Criterion or something like that, but Drive My Car, I will be getting that when it will be officially released in July, but I will be talking about that when I will get that Criterion Blu-ray. There is one movie, unfortunately, I was looking for that I couldn't find a Blu-ray at Target or Walmart, and that is Licorice Pizza. Unfortunately, it was not at either Target or Walmart, so that's kind of a shame because it was definitely a great one. Obviously, Coda, Don't Look Up, and The Power of the Dog have yet to get like a Blu-ray release, whether on Criterion or something else, but we'll just have to wait and see because we know Drive My Car's coming, but I just don't know the rest. But anyways, back onto the two nominated films. Let's start up with the film that took the most wins, of course, and this year's big snub for Best Director for Denis Villeneuve, Dune. So I still say Arrival is still my favorite film from him that I have seen. I also did enjoy his last film, Blade Runner 2049, but I am surprised how fast this movie is. Now, obviously, it had won 6 Oscars, visual effects, film editing, cinematography, production design, sound, and Hans Zimmer's long overdue second win for original score. Now, for me personally, I honestly do agree with Dune for original score and film editing, because Zimmer's score is just so very noticeable compared to the other 4 nominees, and this movie is very fast-paced. It really is a fast-paced movie. It does go a bit slow near the end, but that's because it's kind of building the setup for Dune Part 2, which is planned to be released next year. Definitely a very technical-wise movie, and Villeneuve's direction is totally a standout. Some of the performances, like Timothée Chalamet and Rebecca Ferguson, and Stellan Skarsgård and Jason Momoa and Josh Brolin were fantastic here. But we can't really see much about the film because, as many people know, this is just a part 1. As for the other categories that did win, which I think that should have won, I would say, as I mentioned, No Time to Die should have won sound. And I think The Tragedy of Macbeth should have won for production design and cinematography. As for the others it was nominated for, can't tell about costume design or makeup and hairstyling, but for adapted screenplay, I'll probably get to that when we get to Drive My Car, so I'll probably save those for later. But out of all the films that were nominated for Best Picture, out of all the 10, my favorite out of the 10 that I think that should have won is King Richard. Now, I know this movie is kind of a bit odd now because with Will Smith's historic Oscar slap on Chris Rock, which is very odd that ABC wants Chris Rock to host next year. Oh my gosh. So this was probably a massive surprise to me. Although not the best movie of the year, it would be my number 3 behind Spencer and No Time to Die. But it is my favorite out of the 10. This should have won Best Picture. It should have won Original Screenplay for Zach Baylin. And Anjanou Ellis should have won for Supporting Actress. Be Alive does work a bit better in the movie, but Beyonce's still overrated. As for Will Smith, I know this is going to be odd, and it's not because of the slap. It's just my opinion on the movie, so just keep FYI here. Definitely a good performance, but not one of the best leading acting performances of the year, because if I did my personal lead actor lineup, he would be my 7th place for me. Because I think there were 6 other lead actor male performances I think were way better. And for me, I think very ironically, like what is his proper father figure, Denzel Washington, I think should have won for The Tragedy of Macbeth. But this is still a great sports movie because, kind of like Spencer, where it only takes a span of 3 days, you would think this would be a generic biopic of the origins of Serena and Venus Williams, as what the Blu-ray is telling you right here. But it's going more in the perspective of their father, Richard Williams, and remember, not the animator. This is the father of the All-Star Tennis Sisters, going into his perspective and not on the girls themselves was definitely a very smart move. Maybe it could be more in Will Smith's perspective because he was a producer of this film, or it could be director Ronaldo Marcus Green or writer Zach Baylin, but I'm not really sure at the moment. But this is definitely a great experience. I will say it does get a bit slow once they get to Florida, but it does get a bit back hype again when we get to the big climax of Serena's big match with that also that big record tennis player who cheated for taking a long break. If you have seen the movie, not a major spoiler because it is a biopic, so definitely should have won Best Picture, and definitely a great film that I am glad to have in my collection as well with Dune. And finally, for this episode, for this Blu-ray update, kind of similar to the beginning of the year when I watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy for the first time. 2 weeks ago, these past 2 weeks, this was my first time experiencing the Harry Potter films. Not the Fantastic Beasts trilogy, but the original 8 films. And although you would think you want to get them separately, why not get the complete 8-film collection? This is definitely one of the biggest Blu-ray cases I have gotten that contains all 8 movies. The Sorcerer's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets, The Prisoner of Azkaban, The Goblet of Fire, The Order of the Phoenix, The Half-Blood Prince, The Deathly Hallows Part 1, and The Deathly Hallows Part 2. Wow, I was just blown away by this series. This is definitely one of my favorite series up there. Obviously not the best franchise, as I said, because I have no plans of watching the Fantastic Beasts films anytime soon. And of course, I know J.K. Rowling has been getting a massive bad reputation because what on earth did she said? Now, obviously with me not doing, watching those, you would think, would I be doing a ranking of these? Honestly, probably not. I think many people have already done this. So if I would actually go, let's open this big boy. I mean, seriously, if I can. I have to do it the old-fashioned way. There we go. I think we can all agree for number 8, it's easily The Deathly Hallows Part 1. I mean, that is without a doubt the weakest one. But a bit of a controversial thing here. I think my number 7 would be The Deathly Hallows Part 2. Now, it might be a bit overrated for me. Probably, definitely these two are the weakest ones, I would say. And I think it's because I think they would have worked better if it was one big movie. If it was one big movie, I think this would have been amazing. But as they are separate, it kind of feels a bit weak, like more of a downgrade for me, at least. So those would be number 8 and 7. Number 6 would be The Half-Blood Prince. Number 5 would be The Prisoner of Azkaban. Number 4 would be The Order of the Phoenix. Number 3 would be The Goblet of Fire. Number 2 would be The Sorcerer's Stone. And my favorite one would be, of the entire series, is The Chamber of Secrets. And I almost consider, like, these first 2 to be legit masterpieces. Especially Chamber of Secrets. Like, these first 2... definitely not also a fantastic introduction to the world of Harry Potter, but also for Chamber of Secrets to tell us, we know these characters, and we know the world of Hogwarts, and you're going to witness another more adventure. Another thing I would like to mention is Lord Voldemort, not one of the best movie villains, because although I think Chamber of Secrets really went a lot, but I don't know what was his purpose for the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, because I almost feel like he's barely a character in Part 2 specifically, because he doesn't really feel that threatening. And I think it could have been, like I said, if this would have been a one big movie, I think this would have been way better. But I am still glad to own all 8 films in this collection. It is such a great honor to experience the world of Hogwarts, and I am glad that I own this series now on Blu-ray. So this is going to do it for this Blu-ray update. Thank you guys for watching this. If you enjoyed this video, you can hit that subscribe button. Comment down below if you have seen any of these movies. And hopefully the next Blu-ray update, actually the next one will be another Criterion Blu-ray update for my purchases for the month of May. Most likely will probably be released in the beginning of June. So hope you guys have a great Memorial Day, and see you in the next video.